A sexual fantasy is basically a thought, a scenario, or an image that sparks arousal. Sometimes you may want to act on it, sometimes you don't, but either way, having a fantasy doesn't automatically make you sinful.
I was just, trying to be a good coworker and not knowing that this woman was trying to set up, a threesome, with us. And I'm just thinking, girl.
Well, for me, one of the things I've never had in my sexual experiences is a threesome.
I hate that thing.
But after 20 years of being together,
this is the framework.
This is what we have kind of, our biblical value is what has put us in a position to know what to bring to each other.
Like, at what point do we just say, okay, that was like, that orgasm was wonderful.
How to not let greed step into the bedroom and bring you outside of the covenant, and now you're in gluttony, sexual gluttony. You're indulging in way too much. Are sexual fantasies and fetishes automatically sinful for Christian couples? Or can a healthy conversation about them actually strengthen your marriage? Because a lot of believers are carrying questions they feel too saved to ask. And if you've ever felt curious, confused, or even ashamed about what goes on in your mind, you are not alone.
Absolutely. Some of y'all have been scared to bring something up. Others have had your spouse open up and you didn't exactly know how to respond without shutting them down. So today we're going to give you clarity, but we're also going to give you language, because your bedroom doesn't need more secrecy, it needs more safety.
All right, in today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to address two extremes that we keep hearing. The first one is anything goes as long as you're married. And secondly, it's all sinful, you can't even think about it. We believe both positions miss biblical wisdom. So we're going to provide you with a framework that honors God,
yes,
and we want to help you protect your marriage. And so let's get into it.
All right. Well, welcome back to BennettLife TV. I'm Dana.
And I'm Ken.
And we love doing what we do because we've lived what we teach. We've been the couple trying to figure out how to talk about hard things without making it weird, which is nearly impossible. It's weird. Without making it heavy and without making each other feel unsafe. And if you're new here, our whole mission is simple. We want to help couples feel again, touch again, and try again.
So today we're going to be stepping into a conversation that's been sitting in a lot of Christian marriages silently. We're going to talk about fantasies and fetishes and how to keep it pure.
Yes.
Now, what we want to do first and foremost, we at least want to set the tone for today's conversation. And we're going to be extremely honest. Today's episode will raise some eyebrows. Some of you will agree, and then some of you won't, and you'll likely be in our inbox, and that's cool. But we're not doing this to be edgy,
No.
and we're not doing this or not giving anybody permission to step outside of a Christ-centered marriage. What we're doing is what we've said we would do. We're answering real questions from real married people who love God and love their spouse, but need wisdom and not shame. So if you're in a tender season, we honor that. Take what helps you and pause what doesn't, and steward your heart. This is for a mature audience. This is a mature conversation for covenant keeping couples.
Yes. Most marriages don't struggle because of a fantasy. Mm-hmm. They struggle because they don't know how to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And here's the conviction. The church has been so quiet about desire or anything sexual related to sex for that matter, that a lot of Christian couples learned intimacy from the internet instead of from scripture. Mm-hmm. And that silence, it really doesn't produce holiness. It produces shame.
And this is, just candidly speaking, this is a setup that you find a lot of husbands and wives are in the same bed. They love each other, but they're hiding the parts of themselves from each other. Not always because the desire is wicked, but because they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And here's the key. A fantasy is not a command. It's just information. And if you don't learn how to process that information with honesty, safety, and biblical wisdom, secrecy will do more damage than it ever did. Dana and I have been married for nearly 20 years now, and we didn't get here by pretending we don't have real desires. We got here by learning how to talk, what's on the table, what's off the table, and why not.
Yes. So this episode isn't about whatever you want. It's about building a framework so your marriage gets stronger, not stranger. We're not here to give you a license to get weird. But in the early years of our marriage, Ken and I had some pretty awkward conversations. And even though we were best friends, this topic was still kind of weird. When our approach was awkward to broach the subject. And I remember one night we were talking and something came up that surprised me. Not because it was crazy, but because I realized I had assumptions about you and you had assumptions about me, and neither of us had taken the time to really stop and ask. And we were learning something big, that a fantasy or a fetish doesn't automatically mean your marriage is in trouble, because we recognize that not everything that my spouse is curious about needs to be acted on. It just needs to be talked through. So here's 3 quick approaches that I want to share, and then we can build from here.
That's good.
Some things you will talk about.
Okay.
Some things you will try after you talk about them. And some things you both will agree to just leave it alone. And it's not out of fear, but it's out of wisdom. And we're going to unpack all of this a little bit more.
That's good. I think that's a good place to start. So let's first uncover the origin of fantasies. After research and a lot of reading on this subject before recording this episode, what we want to do is demystify the topic altogether. A sexual fantasy is basically a thought, a scenario, or an image that sparks arousal. Sometimes you may want to act on it, sometimes you don't, but either way, having a fantasy doesn't automatically make you sinful. I want you to think of it like this. Temptation isn't the same as transgression. Jesus was tempted, yet without sin. So the presence of a thought is not proof of a dirty heart, but what you do with the thought is what matters.
Yeah, and I think to that point right there, it's one thing to have a thought. It's another thing to linger and allow that thought to grow. Because I know there's somebody that's listening to this that says, well, what about the scripture that says if a man even looks at a woman and lusts after her, then he's committed a sin? Well, there we're talking about having a thought that grew into lust. That's the difference. We can't always control what pops in and out of our heads. But we can control how long we sit and ponder and let that thought grow.
Very good.
Where do fantasies come from? They come from a few places. They come from arousal. Just like I said, our minds respond to stimulation. Something comes across as stimuli, and then we are aroused by it. And it can be something completely benign. It's why sometimes when you go and you get a massage, it's completely benign. The relationship's completely platonic. There's not any sexual attraction, but because there has been some sort of stimulation, now there is arousal.
That's good. That's a very good point.
Next thing, curiosity. Sometimes you're just interested because it's new. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I remember in you doing your research, like you always do, your research for this, you came out of the room with your eyes as big as saucers and you were like, I didn't know there was so many fetishes out there.
There's a lot out there.
I didn't know people were into this and into that and into that. And sometimes it's just being interested in something new.
Right.
Next, it can come from an unmet need. Sometimes a fantasy is pointing to something that is missing physically, emotionally, relationally. It's pointing to something else, and it's not necessarily about the fantasy itself. And then sometimes they come from as a means of escape. Some people use fantasies as a mental off switch from stress. I want to take my mind off of work, and so I put my mind over here.
That's good.
And then sometimes it's just because it's taboo. Sometimes the brain is just drawn to what feels off limits. We know how that is. We always desire the thing that we cannot have. And here's the part that we want to handle carefully. Sometimes desire has a backstory. Not always, but sometimes your why matters. Past experiences, exposure, even wounds can shape what pops up in our minds.
Very good.
So we're not here to demonize you because you have a desire.
Absolutely.
I really wish we would take the stigma and the shame and stop making the sex in all of its the totality and the wholeness of it so taboo.
Right. That's
We've
very
got to
good.
stop demonizing what God created.
That's good.
We are here to help couples figure out how to interpret what they fantasize, so that you can share that with your spouse and you can build intimacy without breaking trust.
So here's what we want to do. I like where this is going. We're going to be both practical and we're going to be spiritual today. We're going to give you a framework if you just stick with us to the end of the episode. By the way, if this is your first time checking out BennettLife TV, we'd love for you to let us know in the comments. We want to know where you're streaming from, but also if you've already gotten some benefit from today's conversation, let us know, and then also hit the subscribe button. But before we get any further, I do want to give a little context because y'all know I love facts. There was a major study done on sexual fantasies, and I got into this article and I was like, okay, we're not going to make this episode about that because I could have easily went in one direction and you were even concerned like, yo, we not finna get into all of the fetishes and all of that.
Y'all know what y'all like.
Let's get into the conversation in the way that we can bring the discussion to Christian couples, apply biblical wisdom, and then help them use wisdom on how to act those things out. So in all of my research, I discovered that this major study took place on sexual fantasies. There was thousands of people who were answered hundreds of questions. And the point wasn't to make anybody who took the survey freaky, right? The point was to show how common a fantasy is.
Right.
And when researchers grouped what people fantasized about, the things were remarkably consistent. Now, you may not relate to every single one that I'm going to call out, but I guarantee you'll recognize the categories. The first one was multiple partner scenarios. This could be as simple as imagining a third person present. Even if you'd never actually want that person in real life, it's about the idea of being desired by more than one person at the same time. The second category was power and control dynamics. Now, this one was interesting. I want you to think of being in charge or being the one who surrenders control. One spouse takes the lead, the other follows. It's about dominance and submission in that particular moment. Then there was another category referred to as novelty and adventure. These are the new locations, the new experiences,
the sneaking off to the bathroom,
in the car,
the dressing room,
restaurant, things of that nature. And it's a spontaneous encounter in an unexpected place or trying something you've never done before. It's the thrill of different. And then there was a category called taboo, and that is that forbidden fruit feeling. This is that anything that feels off limits or slightly risky. The excitement comes from the tension of we probably shouldn't, but let's try it. And then another category was partner sharing fantasies. This involves
swingers.
Yeah, this is swingers. This involves imagining your spouse with someone else being watched. Again, fantasy doesn't equal desire for reality. It's often about seeing your partner as desirable to others. Then there was another one called gender flexibility themes. And this could include curiosity about role reversal or exploring expressions outside of those traditional expectations, things like clothing, posture, or who initiates the physical intimacy. Then there's romance and emotional connection. Now, this one was about intimacy with intention, eye contact, slow build up, being fully present. It's less about the act and more about feeling deeply known and wanted. Now, here's the point as to why we gave you all of those, points and categories. I want you to see first and foremost, over thousands of people took that survey. This at least should let you know that you're not weird for having a mind. What matters is what you do with it. Do you hide it? Do you talk about it with your spouse? Do you act on it, or do you react, or does it build something up in your marriage or bruise it?
Right. So let's pause for a second. That was a lot, and you went through it fast. You didn't even give us a chance.
Because I didn't want to, spend too much time on it because I know the real question is they know what they like. What they want us to share with them is How do I know what is in sync with God's will for my marriage?
They want to know what we like. These people nosy. They want.
And my answer is sometimes your business.
My business ain't your business. So let's pause right there, because for us as believers, the question isn't just, is this normal?
Yeah.
The real question is this wise?
Is it honoring? Yes.
Is it honoring?
That's
Is
good.
it helping us? Or is this setting us up for something later? The world standard is simple. If it's consensual, then it's fine. But Scripture gives us a higher standard, not to kill intimacy, but really to protect the covenant.
Yes.
So before we give y'all practical steps, we need to give you 3 biblical filters to consider in this area, because without filters, freedom turns into foolishness. You do not want to give into some fantasy or some fetish, open Pandora's box, and then now you can't get the sanctity of your covenant back.
Because the goal is for the enemy to store it in the memory bank of your covenant.
Right.
My goodness, that to me is the reason why I refuse to allow things to enter the bedroom. You know, our rule of thumb is if a third person enters we refuse to let a third person enter the room, then it becomes sin. So for us, we're making a decision that won't be our story.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So the first one is permissible doesn't mean beneficial. So in 1 Corinthians 10 and 23, Paul says it like this: all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Basically, just because you can doesn't mean you should. This verse changes everything for married people, because the question isn't can we, because we know that we can. We're two consenting adults. The question is, should we?
Yeah.
Does this build my spouse up? Does this strengthen our trust? Does this produce closeness? Or does this introduce confusion that past this moment, we're going to have a problem?
Wow.
And some of you need to hear this. If it's only beneficial for one of you, it's not building the marriage.
That's good.
Marriage isn't one person's freedom at the expense of the other person.
That's good.
The second filter is don't be mastered by anything.
My goodness.
1 Corinthians 6 and 12. Again, all things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. So here's the honest question. Can you enjoy your spouse without the fantasy, without the fetish? Can you be present without needing that mental movie? Because if you can't, it's not just a preference anymore. It's starting to take control. And the goal isn't never think a thought. The goal is freedom. And freedom means you can walk away from it. You're not chained to it. Your arousal, your attraction to your partner is not chained to this one thought or this one way of doing something.
That's good. That's good. I want to give you point number 3 to this, filter number 3 that we, really use in our marriage is this: the marriage bed is honorable, so keep it honorable. Hebrews 13 and 4 said, let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled. Now, people love quoting this verse right here.
We can do what we want because the marriage bed is undefiled.
Like it means anything goes, but that's not actually what the writer is saying. It says the bed is honorable and undefiled. Honorable means dignity. Undefiled means nothing gets brought into the covenant that contaminates the covenant. So the question becomes, does the fantasy honor my spouse, or does it objectify my spouse? Does it make us closer, or does it introduce something that doesn't belong in the union? So here's what we want to do. We've given them some spiritual stuff. Let's now transition to the practical. Let's talk this, how to walk this out practically. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's get practical, tactical, logistical, if you will, because a lot of couples aren't struggling with desire. You're struggling with how to bring it up without pressure.
That part there.
If you've never talked about fantasies with your spouse, don't start with a demand.
Wow.
Start with a door. So don't start with, I saw this movie and now you got to wear leather and whips and chains and all the things. No, start with a door. And here's an easy way in. I want you to frame it like a dream. Literally, I had this dream the other night and it caught me off guard. This approach lowers the stakes. It communicates, I'm inviting you into my world, not I'm requesting a performance. And then you're giving your spouse room to be curious instead of forcing them to react on the spot. Because pressure kills intimacy.
Jesus, say that one more time.
Pressure kills intimacy. Safety builds it. Now, if we ever consider actually trying something, we run it through what we call the pure test. So after we talk about it, we bring it up, we give our spouse the opportunity to digest it, see how they feel with it, sit with it, ask questions, we talk through it. Now we have to run it through the pure test once we decide, oh, well, that sounds like fun. We might want to do that.
I think that's and we'll give you, the framework for that and help prayerfully. This will help many of you all approach the conversation. Now, me and my wife, we like to have fun. And, when she wants to try something, sometimes it's in a picture. You'll send me a pic and say, hey, thinking about you. And that sparks conversation. Some of you all need to maybe start there, start sending each other pictures. I remember a few weeks ago, you sent me a picture that I can't get out of my head. And that excited me. That can, I'm like now I'm speechless now, but it is what it is. So these are all things, we're having a conversation on fantasies and fetishes because we want you to keep the flame burning, but not at the expense of the peace in the home. And we believe that it is okay to have fun. Many of you have inboxed us with this question, which is why we're shooting this episode. But we just want you to really think about what you're asking for.
Right.
That's the thing.
Because we see the aftermath.
Yeah, there's an aftermath that follows.
Yes. Inboxes after. Explaining the devastation after.
Yes.
We tried to threesome and now, someone's jealous or now someone regrets it and feels shame. We tried swinging and now, X, Y, and Z. My husband saw this and introduced it and it really made me feel away because now he's demanding,
this has to be the way now.
And so we're saying, let's get ahead of this before we just give in to how we feel in the moment. Let's actually think about it. Because it's not always benign. It can set up for a residual impact to your marriage that once that moment is over,
it'll spiral into a whirlwind that you no longer have control of. And then what ends up happening is you end up losing each other. It is because you've brought in something that was not sanctimonious. It did not protect the covenant. All it did was bring something in it designed to kill it. And so now it's hard for you to see each other in the same light once you've crossed that line. I remember a time in the early days of our marriage, you all are not friends anymore, so I can mention it, but this person was interested in trying to work something out between this person had a certain you remember many years ago, before pastoring, before, you know what I'm talking about? You don't remember?
Keep talking.
This person who you worked with, and she,
Oh,
there
child.
You go. There's a look right there. Yes, and so I don't know what she thought. Like if the structure of this marriage was weak, she
would have.
Yeah. She was coming on strong, and I'm like, yo, what is? Like, sis, back.
My gosh, she had it all planned out.
But I didn't know that, and even tried to create
didn't even know that.
Scenarios where we would always be in the same room with each other. And so, but it was your friend. So, but you knew your friend's tendencies too.
She was really a coworker, and to your point, she was a woman of a certain reputation. And I was just, trying to be a good coworker and not knowing that this woman was trying to set up, a threesome, with us. And I'm just thinking, girl, like this isn't something that I don't know. Maybe you do just stumble into a threesome, but I would think that would be a conversation that you would sit and have and see if we're even open to that and all of that. Maybe I'm just too practical. I don't know. I'm not that spontaneous where I'm just gonna just up and be like, oh yeah, we had fun tonight. We had dinner. Let's go have, that's just not how I roll. Just anyway. But that was just crazy to me how That's the norm for some people.
It is, but
that's some people's reality.
I want to speak to this though, because we jokingly say I would have loved to. Well, for me, one of the things I've never had in my sexual experiences is a threesome. So I
hate that for you that you didn't do that before we got married.
Yes,
I hate that
I've never had that experience, and so in my back of my mind, I wonder what it's like, but it just shows how the enemy can pull what's been stored. And
that's good.
And I felt like in that moment, the enemy was like, here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity. Like, go ahead and try it out. And homegirl wasn't an ugly lady.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like there's no way in the world her and I would be even engaged.
Yeah, she was nice looking.
The enemy sends exactly what we like to help support the movie we've played in our mind.
Absolutely.
And so in that moment, I'm just like, oh no, the devil is alive. There is no way. I was afraid of the future.
Wow.
I wasn't sure that if I had took advantage of that, what our future would have looked like.
Wow.
I just was not willing to bring something into the bedroom that now we got to pray through. We got to believe God through. Does that make sense? So I want you all to really be thinking like your spouse is not a bad person because they don't want to bring something into the room. They might just be more concerned about the strength of the future, that they with full assurance and integrity say, no one has been there. We've never crossed that line. And I just so what we want to do here is I'm going to give you, like a framework we didn't necessarily talk through saying this is the framework, but after 20 years of being together, this is the framework. This is what we have kind of our biblical values is what has put us in a position to know what to bring to each other and what should be dealt with in prayer. Go ahead.
Now, I want to toss this out here. Maybe before we jump into the framework, you can speak to this. I've always asked this, like, okay, you didn't come prepared.
I'm sorry.
Ask this question, like, when is enough enough?
What do you mean?
Sexually, like, when is enough enough? I feel like some people are constantly chasing the next high, like the next thing. And I feel like it speaks to a larger void.
Unhealthy.
A person who can never be satisfied, who's insatiable, who's always about the thrill. It's always about the next thing. I just feel like sometimes we have to settle in, especially when you get married, that at some point enough is enough.
It's true.
Like it's almost like we used to say, I used to have some friends, y'all, this before we got married and all of that. So don't judge me or judge me. It's whatever. But I used to have friends, smoking weed was never my thing, but I had friends who smoked. And I just used to be like, how high is high enough? Because y'all been smoking for 3 days. Like y'all have visited the weed man 3 times over this weekend. I have not seen you unhigh at all this weekend. Like how high is high enough? And I think it's the same question in the bedroom. Like how freaky is freaky enough? Wow. Like at what point do we just say, okay, that was like, that orgasm was wonderful, and I'm going to just leave it right there. Wow. Versus, no, it has to be better the next time, and better the next time, and better the next time. Is there anything you have to add to that?
I think you asked and answered the question, I guess, to a degree. I would just say, it'll always true back to that in marriage, you're never going to get 100% of what you want. Particularly in the area of physical intimacy. I think a lot of couples have not accepted that, you're going to have to learn how to not let greed step into the bedroom and bring you outside of the covenant. And now you're in gluttony. You're in, sexual gluttony. Like you're indulging way too much. And many times I'm willing to bet it points to an unhealthy season in your life where that became the thing to anesthetize what's been difficult to process. That's good. You have to figure out the why behind the ask. The why can't be motivated because, when I was with old girl or, my home, what sisters say, when I was with him, he did all, you got to ask the why and make sure that it's from a good place. So that you're not putting your partner in a position to perform on the stage they've never been on. And for me, that's what it's always been. So I would just encourage you to just think through the why behind the ask. That to me is very important. So let's get through the pure test, because I think this is important, and here's why. Because just because something is possible does not mean it's wise for you. So we have what we call the pure framework. The pure framework. The first letter in pure is P. Is it peaceable?
Yes.
Can we both engage with a clear conscience and real peace, not anxiety and not second guessing? When we come together, like Adam in in Genesis 2:25, it says they were both naked and they felt no shame. When we're going to the bedroom, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's nothing in me that says this has been tainted or polluted. That is the peace of God that you want in your bedroom. And if you've not felt that, my prayer and my decree today is that the peace of God would return back to the bedroom of your marriage, so that you can get back to enjoying each other and not be fighting through the tension of the filth that may have come through because of sin. The second letter in the word pure is U, which means uncoerced. Is this freely desired by both of us? No pressure, no guilt, no if you love me, you would. Okay. That's the part, probably some got to talk about. If you really wanted to please me, you give me what I want.
That's so immature.
And I want to speak to that for a second, because some activity may actually be triggering for your spouse. And if that is the case, you have the responsibility to know that, so that you don't add fuel to that. So if there's an activity that may be, I guess, if you will, benign, but if that activity contributes to something your spouse has been through in that moment, you're going to have to exercise some wisdom. Pray, one, that maybe God heals your spouse so they can get back to enjoying this aspect of physical intimacy. But if it doesn't happen, don't cancel your spouse out because you don't get that one thing. You want to speak to that for a second?
We hear this
all the time. Yes,
a lot. One spouse is willing to do, oral sex, and the other partner is like, no, I don't do that, or I don't want to do that anymore, or whatever the case. And it leaves the other partner really feeling like there's a huge void. And in it, particularly for women, most women do not orgasm from just penetration. They need oral sex or clitoral stimulation to have an orgasm. And if they're married to someone who is like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, she's missing, she's missing out on an opportunity to have full arousal and come to climax and all of that. So it's a big deal. And so to your point, it can feel like your other partner is being really selfish when they say no to something that to you feels like a small ask, right? So to your point, there is got to be some prayer put on it, because here's the thing, your spouse may not come around. So what do you do with this feeling like you can, but you won't? I was going to say, because we got a lot, most of the people that listen to this channel are Christians, so we know prayer is there. But I was going to throw another word at it: therapy. Therapy is a good avenue that helps introduces breakthrough in the bedroom. A lot of you need to come out of them church services, close your Bible, and go sit on somebody's couch. That, I'm telling you, that will really help you identify why you're so disturbed by, if we're using oral sex, why I'm disturbed by this. You're going to have to let, someone help you get to the pain and the source of, because I believe that our spouse's body is for our enjoyment, each other's enjoyment. And God desired for us to enjoy one another. I do believe that. And as now, here's the thing, though. It's not always, trauma or anything like that. It could simply just be preference. It could just be, I don't want it.
That's true.
I don't want it. It's just like you don't have an allergy to mushrooms, but you hate mushrooms.
I do not like mushrooms. No,
you know what I mean? And so it's the equivalent of me trying to force feed you mushrooms.
Yeah.
There's not any trauma there. It's not
That's
like your
true.
situation with grits. I know you were traumatized by grits, so that's why you don't eat grits. Mushrooms are different. Mushrooms, nothing ever happened to you in your childhood concern. You just don't like them.
Right.
There's some things that your partner is just like, I love you. I just don't like that. That grosses me out, or I don't want to do it, or whatever the case may be. There's going to come a time where you just have to say, okay, my partner is not into this. There's even been things I've brought to you and you just like, no, that sounds like slavery. I ain't doing that. And I just respect that. You're just like, I'm not into that.
So what do you do when you have a partner that's turning that down, but in there something, in there a part of our marriage where if the goal is not to make it about me and what I prefer and what I'm comfortable with, but also making sure that my partner gets some satisfaction in this relationship. So I do believe you got to be balanced even in that.
I do. I think there's a conversation that has to be had that says, sweetheart, I really am uncomfortable with doing that. Yes. But I want to make sure you're satisfied.
So I'm willing to try.
So I'm willing to either try it or I'm willing to try something else.
Okay.
There's other ways to satisfy your partner sexually without oral sex. Okay. So there's other ways to do clitoral stimulation and all that kind of stuff. Sweetheart, I really just, that's not for me. Okay. I can't get with it, but let's try. What else could I do to satisfy you?
Okay, I'm still gonna stay on this block. What do you do when you love receiving but not giving?
So, I can get that.
You can?
I can understand that.
No. See, no.
No, I'm not saying it's fair, but I can understand how someone could say, again, maybe there was some trauma, or maybe they had a bad experience. Okay, wait a minute. Let's back up. We're going to get real personal here.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm going to try to see how to say this without just telling all our business. But there were things when we met that you did not experience. Yeah. that you were like, oh, no, and then after we met and you tried it, because your whole thing was everything was a sin.
It is.
And my whole thing was like, let's try it and then pray about it later.
Yes.
And then so I brought you into some things that initially you were like, no, because you had had erroneous teaching that it was sin, but two, you had a bad experience.
That's true.
So sometimes a person has had a bad experience and is like, I went down there once and I almost couldn't find my way out. And so I ain't never going down there again. Okay. And so you sometimes have to help your partner unlearn. You have to love them out of a bad experience so that they can be willing to try again.
Right. But my question is, if you can freely receive, why don't you freely give?
I'm saying because there may be some blockage there.
Okay, so how do we help them get that blockage? Because
you sound like
that's part of it.
You sound like you.
No. I'm just.
You offended on somebody else's behalf. Oh my goodness, you okay?
I am great.
Oh, okay.
I'm great. That's not my testimony.
I was going to say something going on.
I'm just saying. No,
but I do understand. It feels selfish, right?
There you go. That's what
it feels selfish.
It feels very, very selfish.
And I'm not saying that it's not.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's not.
All right.
So you're probably dealing with a partner who in this moment is being selfish.
And just call out that selfish.
Yes. Hey, I feel like that is very selfish of you. Mm-hmm. And so I would lay out the cards and say, hey, I feel like that's very selfish of you. It makes me feel used and it makes me feel taken advantage of, that I can do it for you and you won't do it for me. Yes, so here's what I propose. We just take oral sex off the table.
That's good. Wow.
Since we can't enjoy mutual benefit from this, then how do you feel about us just taking it off the table?
That'll get some act right in them. That'll get some back, right?
Well, it sounds like an ultimatum, but I don't want it to feel like an ultimatum.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a compromise
For the peace in the marriage.
So that I don't feel like this is
resentment,
one-sided and
Gotcha.
I'm willing to give in a way that you're not willing
That's
to
good.
give. Then let's just take that off the
balanced
table.
Advice. I like that. Hey, let us know in the chat. What are y'all thoughts on that? Right?
But the way you present it, though, will determine whether it feels like an ultimatum or a threat, or you're weaponizing it, or it feels like a compromise. So if you say, well, if you don't go down on me, I ain't going down on you. No, that then feels like we're weaponizing it.
True.
Okay, sweetheart, I understand this doesn't work for you.
Right.
But it also doesn't work for me to always be giving and never receive.
That's good.
So in fairness, how about we just take this off the table and let's talk about other ways we can please each other.
That's good.
So I think how you present it matters.
That's good. So we've talked about that it has to be peaceable. We've talked about that it has to be uncoerced. But thirdly, is it reverent?
The R.
R. Does it honor my spouse? Does it reflect the holiness of our covenant, or does it treat them like an object? You know, this is God's daughter, you know, and I want to honor God's daughter because she belongs to God. And I don't want to do anything that makes her feel like she's an object to me, something I can just throw around. No, I want to be reverent unto God and then appreciate what God has made. And he made you, and you look amazing, by the way. And then finally, the E is exclusive.
Right.
Does this keep our desire fully inside our marriage? No third party. And we also mean this even mentally, which means, guys, if y'all are bringing in pornography or anything into the bedroom to help stimulate what you all are trying to do, you got a problem. Because imagine sleeping with your partner, but your mind is on the movie that's playing in the background. That creates an unhealthy pattern. And if physical intimacy in the bedroom for you and your spouse requires you bringing someone else into it in any form, it's just, honestly speaking, as a pastor, it's sin. It doesn't work for us, okay? So we want whatever your fantasy is, whatever your fetish is. If you in the toes, you in the toes. But we want to make sure that it passes this pure test. If it's not pure, it's not for us. And here's what I want you to hear me say. Denial isn't demonic. It's discernment. If a fantasy would create a memory that pulls you towards someone other than your spouse, I'm encouraging you not to do it. That's not fear. That's wisdom, okay? So I want to encourage you guys to go after sacredness. I know you want excitement in the bedroom, and I believe you can have excitement in the bedroom, but prayerfully, the information we're giving you today is going to give you some wisdom. Do you have, I know during our planning meeting, they said that I don't let you give your point of view. So totally just give. Do you have a Dana point of view that you would like to put in this episode so that
I think I've woven my point of view throughout this episode.
So how did I do? Do you feel like I did better with today's episode?
I do. Good job for you. You do a really good job. You are very obstinate when you're getting feedback. You fuss and get all cantankerous and argue and dig in your heels and all of that. But after the Lord works on you,
yes,
which is why I don't even fuss a lot with you about stuff, because this is the beauty of marrying somebody who has a relationship with God. I don't waste my energy arguing with you because I know the Lord will speak to you and work on your heart. So I appreciate that about you. You typically will come around. So you did a good job at coming around.
All right, fam.
You're teachable and coachable.
Well, fam, I pray that you were blessed today. That's what we got for this week's episode. And if you've got something from this, don't let it stop at information. Turn it into a conversation. And here's your next step. Here's what we want you to do. We want you to walk away with something today. We created something called the Bedroom Quiz. And it's designed to help couples name how they show up in intimacy. Not to label you, but to give you understanding, because confusion creates conflict, but clarity creates connection.
Yes. So if you are rocking with this conversation, help us spread it. Subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and share this episode with a couple who needs a safe framework. We love you all. We are praying for you all. We pray you have great conversations and then have great sex afterwards.
Stay faithful, guys.
Stay connected.
And stay together. We will see you guys the next time. Be blessed.